Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. On this occasion, we're once again going to talk about several leaks that I've managed to find, and I think they're quite interesting to discuss. As usual, all of this information comes from sources that are considered fairly credible. But before we get into the discussion, running out of stellar jade and Honkai starrail? Don't worry, there's a more budget-friendly solution. Now you can top up in-game safely, quickly, and at a lower price through U7 Buy. And it's not just Honkai starrail, other games are available too, all in one place. Still not sure? No problem. You can check U7 Buy's reviews directly on Trustpilot, so it's transparent and trustworthy. For comparison, 80 Nihilux shards cost around $100 in the official store, but on U7 Buy, it's much cheaper. The process is also instant. Just select your server, enter your UID, and the balance is delivered straight to your account, no hassle. Don't forget to use code BOOM for a 5% discount. Click the link in my description or pinned comment to visit U7 Buy. Alright, now let's move on to the main topic. However, before we dive into the main discussion, there's one interesting thing that we need to talk about first, and that is the Fate collaboration. A few days ago, to be exact on May 3rd, Hoyoverse finally held an online concert that we could all watch together. So, what do you think about this year's online concert? Personally, I didn't set my expectations too high, since this wasn't a live concert like the previous two anniversary concerts, which were obviously much more lively and memorable. However, one thing that really caught my attention from this concert was the complete absence of any information related to Fate Collab Part 2. There wasn't a single hint, teaser, or announcement pointing toward it. Because of that, maybe it's time for us to slowly lower our expectations and not hope too much that Honkai starrail will collaborate with Fate again in the near future, at least not for version 4.4. For now, it might be better for us to treat the information regarding Fate Collab Part 2 as something that hasn't been confirmed yet, or perhaps something that most likely won't happen in the next few versions. Previously, we already discussed in detail the mechanics of Robin SP and Pearl. This time, we'll once again talk about future characters, but from a slightly different perspective, this time focusing on the paths that these upcoming characters might follow. As usual, all of this information comes from fairly credible sources. So without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the discussion. Alright, all the information we'll be discussing this time comes from a single source, namely Sakura Haven. So, in one of their posts, Sakura Haven mentioned that previously, they, or Yubacha, had stated that Blade SP had the potential to become an Erudition character, because at that time they were aware of a new Erudition character that would be released. However, as we all know now, that information turned out to be inaccurate, since Blade SP ended up being a Nihility character instead of Erudition. Even so, Sakura Haven emphasized and reminded us that just because Blade SP is not Erudition and instead became Nihility, it doesn't mean that no new Erudition character will appear at all. On the contrary, they stated that in future patches there will still be both Erudition and Remembrance characters coming. So, even though Blade SP followed the Nihility path, the slot for an Erudition character still exists and will be filled by a different character. This is a fairly important piece of information to keep in mind, because it means there are still several interesting characters from both of those paths waiting for us in the future. For Erudition, it's almost certain that the character who will fill that path is Himiko SP. However, for Remembrance, there's still no information yet about which character will take that path. Next, Sakura Haven also talked about Nihilux. According to their post, as of now, Sakura Haven still hasn't been able to clearly determine or confirm which path Nihilux will follow. However, there is one thing they are certain about, which is that Nihilux will not follow the two paths we just discussed earlier, namely Erudition and Remembrance. Well, even so, I think most of us can already predict that Nihilux will most likely be an Elation character. On the other hand, HXG Leaks also responded to this by stating that Nihilux is indeed very likely to be an elation character. With that, it means the erudition and remembrance slots mentioned earlier by Sakura Haven will be filled by other characters, not Nihilux. Then, there's another piece of information that is just as interesting, which is about Pearl. Sakura Haven revealed that Pearl was actually prepared as a preservation character back in version 4.1, and is still considered to be that way as far as we know. However, because Pearl experienced quite a significant delay, version 4.1 ended up only introducing one new character, which was Ashvale, without Pearl being released alongside. Even so, although Sakura Haven stated that Pearl is a preservation character, there is still a possibility that this preservation status is merely a placeholder and could change at any time. Another possibility is that Pearl's actual path might be elation, which means she could potentially be released as a sustained character with the elation path, which would make sense, since having an elation sustain would allow players to complete a full elation team. If Pearl does end up becoming an elation sustain, then this could also indirectly give us a hint about Nihilux. Because if Pearl already fills the sustain role, then it's very likely that Nihilux will not take on the same role. And lastly, Sakura Haven mentioned that the information they shared reflects the state of the character kits at the time the post was written. Since Pearl has already experienced quite a long delay, this opens up the possibility that her kit may have undergone several adjustments and changes since that information was first obtained. If we look back at the information about Pearl's kit that we discussed earlier, we know that Sakura Haven mentioned that Pearl would have a 2-level enhanced basic attack, while her skill and ultimate would not deal any damage at all. Based on that, the idea of her being a preservation character actually makes a lot of sense. If Pearl is designed as a sustain or preservation unit, then it would be completely logical for her skill and ultimate to focus purely on providing shields for the team without dealing any damage. Although, to be fair, current shielder characters like Aventurin and Donhung PT are still capable of dealing damage through their ultimate while also providing shields for the team. So, if we look at all the information we've discussed today, we can draw a few key conclusions. First, even though Blade SP turned out to be a Nihility character, that doesn't mean erudition characters won't appear, because according to Sakura Haven, both erudition and remembrance characters are still expected to come in future patches, just not Nihilux. Second, Nihilux itself is very likely to be an elation character rather than erudition or remembrance. And third, Pearl appears to have been planned as a preservation character since version 4.1, although there is still a possibility that her path could change to elation. But as always, all of this is still based on leaks, and Sakura Haven's recent track record has been a bit hit or miss in terms of accuracy. So don't treat this as something definitive, and just enjoy it as discussion material while we wait for official information. Alright, that's all for now, everyone. What do you guys think about this information? Do you think Pearl will actually become a sustained character, or will it turn out differently? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any important updates. See you in the next update.